Okay, we're just coming over the scene now. Coming over the scene. What we have here is an MTA bus that was traveling northbound on the 170 Hollywood Freeway at Magnolia when the driver of that bus lost control, went over the center divider, and careened into southbound traffic, taking with it a motorcyclist. That motorcyclist was killed instantly by that MTA bus. His body has been covered by a blanket. And now at this point, one paramedic unit is on scene. Paramedics are attending to victims that are now trapped underneath this 29,000 plus pound bus here in the southbound lanes of the 170 freeway. They've called in for additional units. They need the jaws of life. There's one set of jaws of life on the scene at this point. They have 3 vehicles trapped underneath the bus, 3 patients trapped. And it appears as though they're now setting up the jaws of life. There you can see in that tight picture. Once again, we're at the Hollywood Freeway at Magnolia. An MTA bus is careened in southbound traffic, and at least as many as 3 people still trapped in their automobiles. We're now hearing maybe as many as 5 critical injuries. Okay, I'm just getting word now. I'm hearing now that there are 2 dead, 2 people pronounced dead at the scene, 1 person on a motorcycle, the second person in one of those minivans that you see in the picture. Paramedics have 1 set of jaws of life. They've called for a heavy utility bus. It appears as though the heavy utility will be used to pick this bus up and rescue the people trapped underneath this bus. It's a scene right out of speed as paramedics work to free these people trapped under this bus. Someone has survived, still laying in the back of this truck. He's going to be treated by paramedics. He has neck and back injuries, possible other internal injuries, as paramedics work, and they're working desperately to free the driver of this small truck and free him with the jaws of life. He is in critical condition, very critical condition. He has now been trapped 15 minutes. He's conscious. Yes, he's alert. He appears to be conscious and alert at this time, and paramedics are now beginning to treat him. The problem is that LA City firefighters can't get enough resources here at the scene because traffic is so blocked, it may take as long as 20 minutes to get additional resources. The first rescue ambulance is here. The problem now is that the firefighters are going to have to get on the freeway, literally in the wrong direction, and approach the accident from the north or the south in the opposing traffic lanes. Okay, we now have another fire rig on scene. We're still waiting the arrival of the heavy utility rescue vehicle with the large tow bar to help rescue the person still trapped in the automobile. We're going to go a tighter shot. Okay, there you can see the tighter shot. Paramedics are attending to the victim inside the cab of that truck. They're attending to him. They appear to be doing a physical examination of the victim on that in the back portion of that pickup, checking for possible injuries, and they're applying now a cervical collar that is to stabilize the neck and prevent any injury to the spinal cord. Okay, it's an incredible sight as firefighters now swarm all over that pickup truck, and they're still working to free this injured man. He's been trapped close to an hour. He is in critical condition with multiple injuries, crushing injuries, and they've literally cut this truck apart to rescue him. As we make our right-hand orbit, we'll try to get you a shot of him, but he is somewhere in that mess of aluminum and steel, and it's a fight for his life. They've landed a rescue air ambulance, a helicopter, to help move this victim back to a trauma center as quickly as possible within that golden hour. Unfortunately, he's not going to make the golden hour because he's been trapped inside that automobile, that truck, for over 1 hour underneath the bus. They have finally freed him, and you can see those firefighters that have swarmed around that truck to rescue this man. There are paramedics down there, firefighters, and of course law enforcement officers, including Cal California Highway Patrolmen, and their sole job right now is to save this man's life. They've started IVs, they've placed his neck into a cervical collar, they've stabilized the spine, and also they're attending to any possible fractures this man may have sustained. The trick now is to stabilize him and move him quickly to get him to a trauma center and to surgery as necessary. And we're going to try to, now coming around the right with a zoom in, and there with the zoom in, we'll get you a tighter picture. Paramedics still working. You see them in the blue helmets working to free this individual. And they now have to use the jaws of life to cut the roof away, to gain access. There you can see a paramedic now climbing into the cab with that man. There's also the risk of fire, and there are firefighters standing by with hose lines, and they're using those hose lines. Now they're moving him out. They finally have extricated him. They're moving him out to a backboard. They've started IVs, and this is good news. They've freed him from this truck, this mess of aluminum and steel, and it looks like he's conscious. We're getting word that he is conscious, and that is a good sign. I'm sure he's relieved. You can see his right arm has been raised somewhat. Okay, they're still moving. You can see the paramedics that have moved into the area. They're working to free the individual. This man has been trapped over 1 hour. This accident occurred over an hour ago. He is in extremely critical condition with several crushing injuries. There, they've moved him away. They've cut his clothes away to expose any possible injuries. There, they have laid him on top of a gurney. And as we move our helicopter just a little bit, you can see the firefighter paramedics now moving in, and they're now placing him on the backboard. They're now working to immobilize his extremities. They placed him into a cervical collar, onto a backboard. They've started IVs, and now, as they move to really tie him down, if you will, to secure him on that backboard, they'll move him to a medical rescue helicopter, LA City Fire Department Helicopter 1, an air ambulance, for that ride to the trauma center and get him to emergency room physicians and the surgeons as quickly as possible. This person has survived, and we understand 5 other people survived this accident that are also in critical condition. They're now going to move him away from the bus. There you can see the IVs that are running. That's to prevent any shock where the blood loss is tremendous enough so the person could actually go into shock and could die. So they're rushing him immediately, moving him quickly to an LA City Fire Department helicopter that has been on the freeway for about 35 minutes. The engine is now running on that helicopter. They're going to be placing him aboard Air Rescue 1, a LA City Fire Department helicopter, and moving him to a local trauma center where he'll get to the emergency room where physicians can evaluate his condition and treat him as necessary. They're just coming up. They're coming closer to that air ambulance. They're now within okay, there they are. They're right alongside the helicopter. This is a Bell 412 helicopter, and they're now going to place the victim that is on a backboard that has been stabilized by paramedics, and they're going to place that victim into the air ambulance for just a 6-minute trip to a local trauma center where he can get the urgent medical care he needs. There he's been placed aboard the rescue helicopter, Fire 1, and he's now being moved in. He's being secured into the helicopter. There you can see the picture, the cab in the center of the frame. We understand a woman is holding a cab driver hostage. She evidently has a weapon. You can see the cab driver in the doorway, the open doorway of the cab. Now we have at least 8 uniformed officers of the California Highway Patrol. They have their weapons drawn right now, and they are trying to talk to the woman. At this point, they've kept their distance. Evidently, they're waiting for a hostage team to handle this. Evidently, this came out of Banning Pass. A person along the freeway saw the cab driver being held at gunpoint and notified officers through 911. Officers sent a fixed-wing unit. They found the cab driver with the fixed-wing aircraft, which is still over the scene, and then notified ground units. Ground units cave chase, tried to pull the vehicle over. It didn't work. And at that point, finally, the cab came to a stop. I don't know if it ran out of gas or exactly what happened, but there it is now stopped in the westbound lanes, the middle of the westbound lanes of the 10 freeway between Riverside and Pepper here in Rialto. And I'll go to a wider picture, and there you can see the officers. We now have a tactical SWAT team that's now moving into the area. We believe these are San Bernardino Sheriff's Department members. They're moving in into position. We have another officer down there, and now the team is now alongside the freeway. Now as a direct view of the cab. We have other officers on the other side of the cab as well. And you can see as I zoom back on in, we're going to try to get in a better position with the light in the other direction. They will always negotiate unless somebody's life's at risk, an officer's life or an innocent person. And then those snipers will take decisive action. We saw the O.J. Simpson pursuit. At the termination of the pursuit at the home, O.J. Simpson was in the crosshairs of the snipers. And had he made a movement that they didn't they thought was dangerous, they could have taken him out. They have special rifles that they use that are very accurate, extremely accurate, and they can take a suspect out. So at this point, we believe we do have some snipers in the area that have moved in from the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, some SWAT team members, and they will try negotiating, but if they see an opportunity to take a suspect down, they might take it. It depends on what the commander determines is necessary to save lives. If you drive Southern California freeways long enough, you'll see everything like this. I guess the devil made him do it.
And under hydraulic, the type of mechanical. He told me to show shots of people sitting in their cars. They have about 15,000 pounds. There's a lot of people who got out walking along. These materials apart and get the victim out. They'll be here for a long time. Very long process. You can see they do have a neck brace on the victim. The vehicles, and so the compression nature of that injury can be that when we are having some ability to put that in behind the victim and to stabilize them. Once we again have any ability to move the victim out, we'll be able to. stabilize. We do have wood cribbing in there trying to stabilize the metal so it doesn't slide against each other. As you can see, the victim is being moved now. They will continue to monitor the vital signs. They'll put a pair of trousers on the patient that can inflate with air and help keep the blood pressure up if necessary. At this point, he is on the backboard. As you can see, the backboard, they do have the bottom out. The next leg here, him down to the board so that he is not going to move no matter what position he has to be in to get him out of the wreckage. We'll load him into the helicopter sitting nearby and take him to the closest medical center that is able to accept him, possibly USC or UCLA. The firefighters worked very quickly and were able to get him free of the wreckage, and this is to the advantage of the victim because the longer it goes on that we're unable to remove the victim, the less the chance of the survival, depending on the type of injury. Trained as paramedic, is a specialist in major trauma
one great thing about the freeways here is you can find almost everything. You don't have to go to a market. You drive long enough, you'll find everything you need.
Kevlar bomb suit. It not only protects his upper body, but also his head. He's got a way of breathing, and right now he's moved very close to what appears to be a 5-inch galvanized metal piece of pipe with the ends both capped off. Now he's walking away. He's put a device close to that possible device, and I think what that will do is they're going to possibly detonate an explosive device next to that pipe bomb and see if they can detonate that possible pipe bomb in doing so. We're waiting to hear some more information from the Sheriff's Department to get exactly the latest, but there in the center of your screen is a galvanized piece of metal capped on both sides, and then there's a yellow device, almost looks like a car jack, excuse me. And we saw what looked like blasting caps. He's run a cable, a wire out to the device as well. They generally do this when they want to detonate a device. If they have a suspicious device, instead of messing with it, what they'll do is they'll take a blasting cap and they'll detonate that next to the suspicious device and see if they can get a detonation. And that's what I think they're going to be doing here. And we're going to be checking in with the Sheriff's Department to see if we get some more information. Once again, this is the westbound 2